It's fair to say that Samsung surprised the majority of the industry when it whipped out the Galaxy Note Edge alongside the Note 4 during its announcement event at IFA 2014. Not only were we not prepared for two whole Note models, but we were taken unawares by the edges out of a sci-fi flick look, with its display sloping all the way through to the right side of its body. But take the Note Edge's display out and we're looking at two twin devices, or at least it seems so on paper. Is that really the case, or are we looking at a gross oversimplification? This is Chris with PhoneArena, let's dig in and find out. As we touched on already, save for the alien extra screen on the Note Edge, it has actually been styled after the Note 4, complete with Samsung's refreshed design language. We're still looking at a rounded rectangular body, but the four protective bumps at the corners of the Note 4 are not available with the Note Edge. Its side screen obviously leaves no space for them. The Note 4 is thicker, heavier and taller than the Edge, but it's less wide, which is an important consideration when talking phablets. Speaking of the sacrifices the company had to make to fit that futuristic display, it's also important to note that while the volume rocker sits on the left side with both devices, the Edge has its power key moved to the top, whereas the Note 4 has its own conveniently placed within a thumb's distance on the right. Thankfully, you can still use the physical home button on both devices to wake up the screen and then unlock it. Taking a peek at the back, we're met with a familiar sight with both. The now Samsung signature faux leather material has been used with the two devices, though we definitely like the pattern more than what their predecessor, the Note 3, had to offer. Everything else about the bag, from the camera through the heart rate sensor and speaker, is identical. So how does all of this come together when talking about handling the two and overall ergonomics? Well, it's really quite simple. The Note Edge, thanks to its wider frame and edge screen, is the more cumbersome device to operate and handle. The first thing that you need to know when it comes to the Note 4 and the Note Edge is the difference between the two display panels, and we're not just talking about the extra screen on the side of the Note Edge. To start off, while both devices are very similar in terms of their dimensions, the Note Edge actually has a smaller 5.6-inch display versus the 5.7-incher of the Note 4. But the extra real estate on its profile actually swings this in its favor. Indeed, the secondary display adds 160 extra horizontal pixels, which is enough for an extra column of icons. Speaking of pixels, both screens have a resolution of 1440 by 2560 or a density of 525 ppi with the Edge and 515 ppi with the Note 4. The same kind of small differences also materialize themselves when talking display image quality. Both the Edge and the Note 4, when put into the optional basic screen mode, have an excellent color temperature and minimal color and grayscale deviations, though the Edge's screen proves slightly more inaccurate overall, specifically when the accuracy of different intensities of green, yellow and magenta is involved. The Edge's 5.6-inch panel offers a more correct gamma though, 2.28 versus 1.98. The Edge also has a small advantage in terms of brightness. We measured 496 nits at the peak, while the Note 4 tops off at 468. In our experience, the two devices were very much visible even on a sunny day. The first difference you're bound to spot if you put the Note Edge side by side with the Note 4 is the missing bottom dock with apps. Indeed, with the Edge those are gone and you instead have a shortcut to the phone app and the app drawer only, with the homepage indicator fitted in between the two on the very bottom of the display. Apart from that, however, much everything else about the look and feel of the Android 4.4.4 KitKat based TouchWiz software remains identical. That is, if you exclude the extra functionality offered by the side screen of the Edge. Indeed, the Edge builds upon Samsung's arsenal of proprietary features and pushes it even farther. The extra screen, for example, is where most of the apps you've come to expect to see in the aforementioned app dock are located. The Edge screen can also be used to display incoming notifications, though our experience so far shows that Samsung is mostly playing a game of duplicating existing elements, as if to justify the existence of the Edge. That's right, if you for example receive an email, you'll be able to see a notification both on your status bar and the side screen, the only difference being that the second also lets you know how many of them you have sitting there. The same notification panel also displays the weather and time, which will also often duplicate the content available on the default home screen, which has a widget for the same purpose. The rest of the available Edge screens are more interesting though. You can play a game of memory match for example, or even use it as a ruler or a stopwatch. A dedicated panel will also focus on bringing you game scores from your favorite sports teams, while another yet will allow you to keep track of your favorite stocks and see how they're doing. Whatever else kind of functionality the Edge has, the Note 4 also offers. We're talking about goodies like Smart Stay, multi-window, one-handed operation, and of course the S Pen stylus suite of options. Here we have the pop-up air command menu, which is activated when you pull out the S Pen, with identical set of features across both devices, like Smart Select and Action Memo. Samsung had timing on its side when developing the Note Edge and the Note 4. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 805 was by then ready for showtime, and the company didn't miss the opportunity to incorporate it with both devices along with generous 3GB of RAM. Touted as the chip to go for when talking ultra-high resolutions, we're looking at a quad-core chip with 4 Crate 450 cores capable of cranking up their clock speeds to up to 2.7 GHz along with an Adreno 420 GPU. According to the chipmaker, the improved graphics processor offers some performance improvements of up to 40% whilst consuming up to 20% less power. What's more, Snapdragon 805 devices benefit from a wider feature set which now offers supports for hardware tessellation and geometry shaders for a higher overall quality of graphics. Of course, keep in mind that some regions will get the Note Edge and the Note 4 in a different Exynos flavor. Put into perspective, both configurations deliver outstanding in-app performance, and even navigation through the custom and extremely heavy touch with Android interface is mostly fluid. Lastly, as far as memory is concerned, the Note Edge comes in both 32 and 64GB versions, depending on the region, while the Note 4 is limited to 32GB for the time being. Thankfully, both devices offer storage expansion through microSD, so you can get up to 128GB more. While the Note Edge and the Note 4 differ somewhat in terms of the software loaded on either of them, you have the same two options with both when it comes to browsing, a choice between Samsung's own client and Google's Chrome. Overall, we have found that performance is top-notch and pretty much identical across the two, though we tend to default to Chrome, seeing as it synchronizes our history and bookmarks with its desktop counterpart. If you're a Firefox user, however, Samsung's browser is probably a better pick for you, as it can too synchronize with its desktop client. In terms of connectivity hardware, we're looking at a full stack. Both devices offer Category 6 LTE and support nearly a dozen bands. There's also assisted GPS with GLONASS support on board, along with Bluetooth 4.1, 5 GHz Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi calling, NFC, MHL, and even MirrorLink. The two phablets also have an infrared blaster on their top side, allowing you to take control of electronics around you, like TVs, air conditioners, stereos, set-top boxes, and more. If compared with the Note 4, nothing fancier is going on with the Note Edge when talking about the camera department. Both devices are equipped with a large sensor with 16 megapixels at the rear, complemented by very wide f2.0 lens and a single LED flash. The two Samsung devices also have optical image stabilization, which helps lower tremor and shake during video capture. Up at the front, we're looking at a 3.7 megapixel selfie snapper with both devices. Interface-wise, there is no mistaking the typical TouchWiz overlay available with both devices, but due to its Edge screen, the Note Edge's camera app is markedly different in terms of what goes where, and therefore ergonomics. Indeed, instead of a standard button layout, the Edge has pretty much all the active elements of its UI moved to its side screen, including the shutter button and any options you might want to tinker with. Inertia was initially hard to overcome. After all, we've spent a decade getting accustomed to what we would call a more typical Note 4-like layout. That said, we can't say that the Edge's camera UI is a game changer. It's just a different approach towards the same goal, delivering very similar results overall. As for the features offered by the two's camera app, we're looking at quite a few. For starters, there are manual controls for metering, white balance, ISO and exposure. There's also a wide selection of shooting modes, including the likes of beauty face, rear camera selfie, selective focus, panorama, virtual tour, and even food, which emphasizes vivid colors in food. In terms of image quality, you'll be honestly hard-pressed to distinguish the snaps the two cameras produce, and that makes sense. After all, we're looking at the same hardware configuration, and it would appear that the software algorithms are identical too. In other words, expect to snap sharp and very detailed photos that are consistently exposed properly and offer very low amounts of noise. Co-reproduction is also top-notch with both and stills have a very natural and realistic look with minor deviations from what our own eyes were seeing. Indoor, where light is less readily available, images snapped with either device offer less details, but noise is still kept acceptably low and is mostly invisible unless you zoom in. When shooting in very dim environments, the two phablets still offer decent results, though we're starting to see some issues with co-reproduction. Snaps are looking a tad too reddish. Once the flash kicks in, we have the exact opposite. Stills are very cold. Turning to video, you'll find that both devices are excellent camcorders and once again offer essentially identical results. You can record 1080p video at up to 60 frames per second and 4K UHD clips, and all the footage will be stabilized thanks to the optical image stabilization gizmo on board. As for the quality of footage, we're generally treated to accurate co-representation, nice level of details, and smooth motion. Obviously, 4K clips offer even more detail, but they also look even more natural and sharp. Unfortunately, due to their size and the strain they put on the hardware, 4K videos are limited to 5 minutes only. Multimedia-wise, we're quite happy with what both phablets bring to the table. The built-in Samsung video and music players have always been in a league of their own, and the Note Edge and Note 4 are no exception. To that end, we're looking at two pretty powerful default solutions. With a video player, we've got more than just the ability to play back video. There's also support for subtitles, playback speed, and you can even transform the window into a pop-up one that is layered on top of everything and follows you wherever you go. Samsung has tried to once again give the Edge's side screen a purpose, so you see yet another case of duplicate elements. The start and next and previous buttons, for example, are available on both screens. The same thing is true for the music player as well. It's also feature-rich with support for lyrics, equalizer presets, and even a feature that tries to guess what type of music you're in the mood for and offer suggestions. As for audio reproduction, Samsung obviously used identical hardware for the two devices as respective loudspeakers are actually equally loud. That said, the quality of the sound coming out of the small RarePlay speaker is only okay and nothing to write home about. Expect very decent call quality with both the Note Edge and the Note 4, but that doesn't mean we haven't seen better. For its part, the Edge has a sufficiently loud earpiece and voices are only slightly muffled but clear on the whole. The same is true with the Note 4 also. As for the microphone, the Edge is starting to lag behind the Note 4, for while the mic is loud, transmitted voices actually have a hissy quality to them, all the while the Note 4 checks both bases and proves ahead. When you've got a power-hungry, Quad HD display and a ton of features to cater to, all bets are off as far as battery life goes, at least usually. We expected the Note 4's 3220 mAh cell to offer decent but not great battery life, but we ended up being wrong once our battery life benchmark returned the results of the test. The Note 4 actually persevered for 8 hours and 43 minutes, which is excellent. With the Note Edge, however, we've got a smaller 3000 mAh battery and an extra screen that needs to be looked after, so we obviously expected a less impressive endurance. As it turns out, we were actually right. The Note Edge manages 7 hours and 8 minutes on our battery test, and while that's still excellent on the whole, the Note 4 is obviously the better choice in this regard. Alright, so now that we have explored the anatomy of the Note Edge and the device it's based on, the Note 4, we can finally claim to have something approaching a holistic view. Unfortunately for the nevertheless appealing Note Edge, when the smoke clears, the Note 4 proves to be the better buy. It's got the more ergonomic body and a better battery life. And yes, at $299 with a 2-year contract, it's also $100 cheaper than the extravagant Note Edge. Sure, we could also beat around the bush a little bit more and argue that the Edge's extra screen might eventually become useful through functionality added by third-party developers, but that's a shaky argument at best. In the end, unless you're looking for a trail or to simply try out something different, you're better off keeping to the well-beaten path, and that means the Note 4. Once again, this was Chris with PhoneArena. Thank you for tuning in.